All right, so responding to another question, and I was going to have a conversation with this guy, and I probably still will, but he had started to ask questions about how to get your abs to show. And, one of the things that came up very quickly in the conversation was, I keep doing ab exercises and it's not making it happen. And so, again, I've talked about this quite a bit on this channel, especially when it comes to fitness, is that you can't spot reduce. I can't say where fat will be stored on my body first. I also can't say tell fat how to come off unless I'm doing something like cool sculpting, liposuction, or something like that, where there is some type of medical intervention going on to actually cause that fat loss. And I did recently talk about Ozempic when it comes to fat loss, and that the results have not been great. It's mostly an appetite suppressant, and most people, when they get off of Ozempic, because it's not a lifetime thing, kind of have a rebound effect with that. So you're taking a medication that is changing the chemistry in your body, and there's risks that come along with that, especially since I believe it's an injectable. And then you're not going to be seeing that as a long-term result because you haven't changed your lifestyle. You're just relying on the drug to kind of suppress your appetite. So, there are two aspects to trying to get your abs to show. First of all, you can't show off your muscles if they aren't there. And in order for you to start to develop your abdominals, you need to, first of all, we should talk about what your abdominals do in your body. And so what your abdominals do is that they connect your sternum to your pelvis, right? It's this up and down thing, and when they contract, they cause flexion of the spine, and the other effect of it is going to be the changing of your pelvic tilt, right? So, because your pelvis is directly attached to your abdominals, when you are doing a abdominal exercise, whether if it's a leg lift or something like that, we want to make sure that we are actually getting that tail to tuck under. In fact, we should be focusing on that because that's what it actively does. So one of my least favorite exercises that comes in and out of popularity and has a couple different forms to it is any type of laying leg raise. It's basically going to be mostly an isometric, which means that your muscle is not expanding or contracting. And it puts a lot of leverage on your low back because the muscle that's actually being activated and that is actually going through a range of motion are going to be your iliacus and psoas, a little bit of sartorius and rectus femoris. These are all your hip flexors. So you can see, like right now, as I'm coming up, my pelvis really isn't changing. It's my legs that's moving, which means that I'm using my hip flexors. In order for me to make this effective, there you go, you can see my pelvis is starting to go up. God, that hurts my back a little bit. So another version, something like this, or you could do circles or any kind of ridiculous thing here. And when you're doing any of those exercises, again, most of the work is going to be done by your hip flexors, not your abdominals. So you're not hitting the muscle that you're looking to hit anyways. When you are doing crunches, another thing is that people tend to do sit-ups. And so when you do sit-ups, people, what they'll do is they'll put weight on their hips, right? And they'll come all the way up. But you see that my spine is actually relatively straight here. There might be a little bit of a curve because I'm balancing, I'm getting myself up a little bit, but my abs are not getting any work right now. There's no resistance. I can hold this all fucking day. Maybe that's a little bit harder, but what I tell people when they're doing crunches or anything like that is that I should be able to slide a piece of paper under your hips at any given time. So when I come up, that's as high as I can come up, and my abs are actually in full flexion. Right? So I'm coming up. The other thing is it's all about time under tension. So I don't roll off my shoulders. So you see here, I've got a gap that's shown up here. This gap means that there's no tension in my abs. They're getting more stretch, right? And there is some legitimacy to that, right? but there's no tension under here when I'm getting into that stretch, so as I'm coming up. So what I can do for that, and of course Jet has the Bosu downstairs, but I can use a physio ball or anything like that, something that's round, right? You can put your low back onto a Bosu if what you're looking for is that stretch. So here's me on the physio ball, and now I can stretch all the way back and come up and keep my abs under tension the whole time. Hopefully that was in frame. So yeah, laying down on a Bosu will allow you to get there, but that's going to put more pressure on your spine. So how do we get there a little bit more while, getting that stretch a little bit, is we can actually start doing hanging leg raises. So when I'm doing hanging leg raises, and I don't have a captain's chair here to sit in or stand in, that's the thing where you put your elbows on the pad, you hang your legs down, and you hold onto the handles. You can do it on a bar where you're hanging. And when I'm doing these, I want to think about putting my boot on, right? Foot flexed. And as I lower my legs down, I want to try to kill the momentum with my heel. Like I'm stabbing my heel into the ground. I can even lift my sternum a little bit to kind of get that stretch there. And then I'm going to lift. And when I lift my legs up, I want to be lifting and going in this posterior pelvic tilt. So I'm thinking about bringing my junk into my sternum, right? I don't care how far up my legs go as long as I'm getting that tuck under. And one of the things I do like about this exercise over the crunch is that when it comes to the crunch, right? If I want to make it easy, I put my hands down here. So I'm putting more weight on this side of the fulcrum, so that helps me up. This becomes a little bit harder. This is harder. This is the hardest. If I want to, I could potentially hold on to a weight or a weight plate and lift that up or something like that. So, and what's happening there when I'm doing those things is now I am progressively overloading the exercise, right? So from a hanging standpoint, if I'm hanging or if I'm using the captain's chair and I'm doing those leg lifts, I can start when I'm deconditioned with trying to bring my knees up, and I keep just let my legs hang down. I do kill that momentum, so I'm not swinging up and using that momentum to get up. And then if I want to progress further, I straighten my legs out more and more and more until I'm doing a straight leg lift, right? And again, with all of these, it's all about how much my tailbone tucks under my body, right? So it's all about getting that pelvis up. And then I can start putting on ankle weights or something like that to progress the exercise even further. But I need to make sure that the tension is being felt in my abs, and I should be going towards failure. So the abdominals are a muscle like any other muscle in your body. If you're not training to failure at least sometimes and getting into, that 12 rep max, 10 rep max, 8 rep max, 6 rep max, if you're not hitting that sometimes, then you're not going to see the muscle develop and get bigger. So some people do recommend, I don't know how I feel about the exercise personally yet, is using a cable machine and you hold onto the ropes and then you do the crunches here, right, on your knees. I feel like, and maybe this is just me being biased against it, is that for one, that you have nothing that's holding you onto the ground, so you can only progressively overload to a certain point before the machine starts lifting you up. I also feel like it's just potentially damaging, but I don't have any evidence for that, and it's just not an exercise that I'm particularly fond of, but I could be wrong on that. And I'm sure there's going to be somebody in the comments that's going to chew me out for it anyway, so fuck them. So that's the kind of exercise principle side of that. And again, there's the time under tension thing where we are paying attention to the eccentric. So if we're doing the captain's chair leg lifts, we want to pause at the top when we bring our knees our knees or legs as high as we possibly can get as far in that tilt, and try to take that 4 seconds down so that we're progressively overloading and keeping that time under tension, paying attention to the eccentrics, and then we'll actually develop those rock hard abs that are something to show once we deal with the other end of the equation, which is body fat. So I do strongly recommend, especially if you are a wrestler, that's a sport that you're trying to get into or you are currently actively getting into, doing your fucking cardio because you fucking need it. So yes, cardiovascular training can fatigue your body so that you're more likely to not have enough energy for your lifting workouts. So doing your cardio, like lifting workouts in the morning, cardio in the evening, or vice versa, or on alternating days or something like that, is definitely going to help you create that caloric deficit. Training in a way that actually burns more calories or has more of an afterburn effect. Afterburn effect is somewhat of a myth, but it is, your body's going to be using calories to repair your body while you sleep. And that's where most of the caloric deficit that you're going to create from the workout is actually going to come in. Doing your cardiovascular workout, the number that you see on the treadmill or on the rowing machine or whatever, as far as calories go, that's, it's fine and dandy, but it's usually pretty disappointing because people are like, okay, I need to create a 500 calorie deficit off of what I'm already doing. And so in order for me to do that, I need to be on here for an hour and a half or 2 or 3 hours on a treadmill to try to get to that amount of caloric burn. I actually don't know. It depends on how fast you're going, how much incline you have, and all that. So there's a lot of factors that go into that, or whether you are running on the fucking ground like an actual human. So, there's two sides to the caloric deficit thing, right? So one of them is going to be what kind of activity that you are adding. So if you don't want to change your diet in any way or shape or form, you can add activity to a certain point, but you want to make sure that you're not overtraining yourself, or you want to be creating a caloric deficit through your diet. And what I would say about that is that I would say try to focus on high satiety foods. Satiety is the feeling of feeling fullness in between meals. And so foods that are really, really good for this are going to be like legumes, like beans, brown rice, vegetables all over the place, all kinds of veggies. Just pound your face with veggies. You'll feel better for that. Nuts, to a certain extent, just make sure that you don't go overboard with them because the calories in nuts stack up really, really fast. I don't mean to tell you don't have nuts in your diet, because nuts are a superfood as far as I'm concerned. So trying to keep yourself full on generally mostly low-calorie foods that give you plenty of energy as far as like how you feel, but without like having a lot of things that like donuts or muffins or white bread foods, or even, like a banana. A banana is a great thing, like pre-workout, post-workout, as far as trying to get some quick energy in, but as a midday snack, it's not going to tend to give you a lot of satiety along with that. So a lot of these low-fiber, higher calorie, sugary foods, carbohydrate-based foods will add up really fast, as do fats. And fats do have some level of satiety that come with them, but as far as the amount of fats that you would have to eat to actually reach satiety is actually a little bit on the higher side. So be mindful of where you're getting your calories from. Try to get them from the most nutritious sources that you can, and that's going to help you reach that caloric deficit without necessarily feeling like you are, avoiding certain foods. In fact, that's one of the things that I have actually liked in recent years when it comes to nutrition conversations, and where the dialogue has been with dietitians, is less focused on meal tracking and cutting out the foods that you like, and more about, okay, what can we put into the diet or into our nutrition. I don't like the word diet, and I've gotten in arguments with people about that, is that diet implies something that is short term. I'm going on the Atkins diet, or I'm going on the South Beach diet, or something that I'm going to be doing this for the next 6 months, and then after that I go back to normal. And when you go back to normal, you go back into your old habits, and then you put on the weight again. So think about it more as sustainable nutrition for the rest of your life. Try to make certain choices. So if you know that you are going to Panda Express, I mentioned that because that is one of the places that I like to go. And if you know that you're going there, maybe before you go, you have a salad that's rich in kales, cucumbers, and tomatoes, and just a variety of nice veggies. Or you can make Brussels sprouts, or you can make sorry if I'm going on like high triggering foods here, right, as far as what I'm listing here, but try to fill up on things that are not calorically dense. You could also, if you just want to do something really quick to kind of curb your appetite before you go into those types of places, have some Metamucil. That's 5 grams of fiber. That doesn't have a whole lot of calories to it. And I don't necessarily want to suggest that you're relying on that for food satiety, so you're having Metamucil before every meal. I'm sure that'll make you very, very regular. But it's just one of those things that, if you can't get anything else in, it is kind of an option. So, yeah, fill up on things. Back in the day, I think it was Men's Health or whatever that said, oh, have an apple before you go out. Just anything that's going to fill up your belly with something that's going to be lower caloric before you go into having your pleasure foods, then you're going to be more likely to eat less of them. Reducing your plate size, especially after you've had something that is high fiber, because again, we don't dissolve the fiber. We don't store it as well. So really, really trying to bulk up on those things. And one of the things that I kind of wanted to get into is this idea that I've believed for years, and it's one of those things that's been like this huge question: is how do you fix a broken metabolism? And this, in its own way, is its own video. But so I might revisit this at some point in time. But this idea that if you go into too much of a caloric deficit, that you are going to start to store fat in order to try to protect, your body's going to try to protect itself. And that's kind of a half truth. It's kind of not. Your body definitely does want to protect itself, and it's going to do that by giving you more cravings for stuff. So again, focusing on satiety is going to help curb those cravings. But when you're trying to create a caloric deficit, you have to do very, very accurate tracking of your food ahead of time to find out where you are when your body is not making any change whatsoever. Right? So if you find that, for me, I generally eat, I'm supposed to be eating between 2,200 to 2,700 calories per day. So that is my kind of ballpark, and that's 500 calories right there. If I wanted to create a caloric deficit, then I probably need to be aiming for that 2,200 calories. But I have to do this scientifically. I have to find out exactly over a week or so. Use MyFitnessPal or whatever to try to as accurately. To track as accurately as possible, so that you know what your baseline is. You have to know what your baseline is, and you have to account for the activity that you're putting in, because your activity, if that fluctuates from week to week, then your calorie tracking is going to be off, because your activity is going to be affecting your calorie tracking. And so once you have determined what your calories are, you can go through exercise to create the 500 up to 500 calorie deficit that you need to start to see weight fall off of you. And you'll see about 1% of your body weight come off if you create that deficit from where you are now. The other way that you can do it, if you are already fairly active and you're still not having the results that you want, actually start to reduce your calories from there. And we've already kind of discussed methods of doing that to some extent. You have to pay attention to what your body is telling you. If you are finding that, okay, you're creating this deficit and you are just very lethargic all the time, then you need to be creating less of a deficit. You're finding that when you go into your workouts, you're not able to do as many sets, you're not able to complete your workouts entirely, you're not recovering from them well, that's a sign that you are not, you're in too far of a deficit. Your metabolism is kind of slowing down there. That when your metabolism slows down, the reason why it's slowed down, you have less muscle that you have to support. You are losing muscle when you're going through that caloric deficit. The other thing is that your body is not using as much energy for systems that are more auxiliary, not crucial to your everyday survival. And if you find that you're just being bitchy, right? If you are low energy, you're depressed, you are more snippy at people and things like that, that's a sign that you're in too far of a caloric deficit. So pay attention to what your body's telling you and try to find that balance where you're not having those symptoms, but you're also losing weight. Because at the end of the day, if you want to have your abs show, you need to get to about 10 to 12% body fat. One person recently said it's around 15. am the most comfortable in my body when I'm around 15% body fat. And no, I don't have great definition for my abs when I'm in that range, but I also don't feel like the hunger and the bitchiness and whatnot that comes from being in that much of not having that much of a fat store. And also your fat helps regulate your hormones and your mood and all that. So, getting down to, 10 to 15% body fat, perfectly healthy. If you want to try to get to that 10 to 12% body fat, that's where you're going to find that you're probably the most shredded for wrestlers and whatnot, and some people get down to like 6 to 8% body fat. You get to 5% body fat, you're going to have trouble surviving. So trying to get like super lean, not really sustainable. Your body's not going to like that. 8%, is very common for wrestlers, and so that might be an area that you find, okay, that's sustainable, but it's probably going to be pretty difficult. So that's just my thoughts on what you can do to try to get your abs to show. Hopefully this is helpful for you guys. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below, or email me, or talk to us in the Telegram group so we can have an open conversation that everybody can see. So, all right, I'll see you guys around.